Welcome to Good Questions. Today is Psalm chapter 22, King James Version. We are using the new JBL microphone. Let me know what you think of it, and if you have suggestions on improving the audio or the presentation generally. Thank you again to DS Playstead for continuing offline, primarily, the conversation. You're certainly welcome to continue it online as well. I'm happy for open discussion, and I thank you for it in any form. I like the engagement, and again, engagement is a precious thing, so thank you. So, Psalm chapter 22. My God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why art thou so far from helping me, and from the words of my roaring? Pause. Who else in history used these words, and when and what was the situation? Who were they thinking of when they said these words? Only of themselves? Were they remembering this particular scenario to which this author was referring? And were they having effectively memories or thoughts about history? What was this original scenario, and who was involved in it? Why does the author choose the word roaring? And does this relate to as a lion roaring? Did the author, both in this instance and the one who said it in the future, did they really believe that God had forsaken them? And for how long? How far away was God at that time? What would qualify or disqualify God from helping someone? And for how long? Verse 2. O my God, I cry in the daytime, but thou hearest not, and in the night season, and am not silent. Pause. For how long was the author crying out? Is silence a problem when dealing with God? Does God prefer silence, or prefer audible words, or something else? Verse 3. But thou art holy, O thou that inhabitest the praises of Israel. Pause. How would God's holiness affect his inability to answer prayers at certain times? What is God's agency or purpose overall? What is the big picture? And when the author says inhabitest to the praises of Israel, does this indicate that this nation, Israel, is more important or distinct or significant somehow? Does it indicate that praise is a habitation for God, as in the old picture, kind of the Greek picture of gods on the mountain? And does the author know and see the greater purpose for why their prayers cannot or should not be answered? Verse 4. Our fathers trusted in thee. They trusted, and thou didst deliver them. Pause. Does the author believe that they themselves are less important, less significant than their ancestors, their fathers, because in the eyes of the author, their ancestors were helped, yet they are not helped? Is that a sign of less importance or greater significance, or something else? Verse 5. They cried unto thee, and were delivered. They trusted in thee, and were not confounded. Pause. In what sense were the ancestors answered. Is the author referring to the exodus from Egypt and that generation that had been in captivity? That seems to me to pop into my mind. What image of the ancestors being helped pops into your mind? Is it before the captivity? Is it maybe the patriarchs, maybe Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, or something else? Verse 6, but I am a worm and no man, a reproach of men and despised of the people. Pause. When the author declares himself to be a worm, is he thinking of a serpent-like worm, as in the garden, or a worm as in an earthworm? What would cause the author to feel lower than all men? Verse 7, all they that see me laugh me to scorn. They shoot out the lip, they shake the head, saying, verse 8, he trusted on the Lord, that he would deliver him. Let him deliver him, seeing he delighted in him. Verse 9, but thou art he that took me out of the womb. Thou didst make me hope when I was upon my mother's breasts. Pause. These three verses, 7, 8, and 9, how are they tied in together? How do they relate? When the author says, shoot out the lip, he's not speaking, I suppose, of sympathy. So what facial expression or what look is shooting out the lip, if not for sympathy or pity? Or is it pity or something else? When the author says in verse 9 that it was God that took him out of the womb, is this reference to natural birth or cesarean section or something else? Does the author truly remember at age, say, 1, 2, 3 months, having hope enter into his consciousness? Verse 10, I was cast upon thee from the womb. Thou art my God from my mother's belly. Pause. Did the author know that they were distinct or special from before they had seen daylight? Does the author have special memories from before birth? Verse 11, be not far from me, for trouble is near, for there is none to help. Verse 12, many bulls have compassed me, strong bulls of Bashan have beset me round. Pause. From the aspect of a story, what kind of imagery or feelings are invoked when imagining oneself like a bullfighter, surrounded not only by one bull, but by many? What would that experience be like? And who in history might have had those kinds of experiences and lived to tell about it? What were the bulls of ancient times, having presumably not been bred as highly and distinctly as they are now, what would these more natural or stylistic ancient bulls have appeared as? Would they have been as beefy, meaty? Would they have been a little bit more, I don't know, almost more looking like the ones found perhaps in Asia? Would they have had long horns? It's just interesting to me. Verse 13. They gaped upon me with their mouths, as a ravening and a roaring lion. Verse 14. I am poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax, it is melted in the midst of my bowels. Pause. When the author is experiencing this pain in his guts, in his heart, in his joints, is this from fear, from sorrow, from regret, or from simply having to stand the ground about an action that they had to do, knowing they were supposed to do it, knowing that the price would be higher than most anyone would ever be willing to pay, or something else? Verse 15. My strength is dried up like a potsherd, and my tongue cleaveth to my jaws, and thou hast brought me into the dust of death. Pause. Here we see three images or words or phrases used to invoke dryness, desiccation, or thirstiness. So we see the strength dried up like a potsherd. What is a potsherd? The tongue cleaveth to the jaws. Does this indicate dryness of the muscles, dryness of the mouth? And brought me into the dust of death. How long has the author been without water? Verse 16. For dogs have compassed me, the assembly of the wicked have enclosed me. They pierced my hands and my feet. Pause. Who is this assembly of the wicked? Why did they pierce his hands and his feet? If this is not a future reference only, and a reference to something that happened previously to someone else, who else was that? If this is simply prophecy about a future event, but let's face it, the idea of the piercing of hands and feet is not new. Impaling is a practice since ancient times. And of course, one particular form of it, the crucifixion, represented by the T, or the ancient letter for the omega, not the current one, but the Paleo-Hebraic omega was of course a cross, letter T effectively. So presumably this kind of crucifixion style impaling has been happening for millennia, even before the distinct crucifixion. Who else was treated in this way, and why? And for whom? The author switches from an imagery of bulls to now dogs. Bulls are strong and impressive, and they impale. So instead of using the impaling imagery for the bulls, the author is using a impaling imagery for impalation imagery with the dogs. What is distinct about dogs, and how are they different from angry bulls? Verse 17, I may tell all my bones. They look and stare upon me. Pause. So we know the author is thirsty, or we guess the author is thirsty because of the previous verse, verse 15. But now the author refers to his bones. Does this indicate that the author has been fasting or starved deliberately? When was the last time the author ate? If it is not hunger causing the bones to be visible, is it the feeling of the bones? Is the author in so much pain and kind of temporary arthritis that he can feel all of his bones? In what psychological state, and how did the author end up this way? Does God care about these things? Is this kind of suffering presumably for righteousness? Is this an offering to God? Does God experience these things alongside the people that are experiencing them and participate and partake of these pains with them? Verse 18, they part my garments upon them, and cast lots upon my vesture. Pause. Does this indicate that the author was impaled nude and disgraced in full view of some assembly? And of course spoiled, his belongings and even his clothes taken from him. Verse 19, but be not thou far from me, O Lord. O my strength, haste thee to help me. Pause. Does the author believe that they will be delivered from this great pain and peril and disgrace and torture? Verse 20, deliver my soul from the sword, my darling from the power of the dog. Pause. Is this related to some Anubis-like? Was Anubis the god of the dogs? Which god was this? Or did the Romans have a god dog? Or the Assyrians? What is the power of the dog? And how is it distinct from the power of the bull? And to what does the author refer to who when the author says, deliver my darling from the power of the dog? Who is the darling, or what is the darling? Verse 21, save me from the lion's mouth, for thou hast heard me from the horns of the unicorns. Pause. What are the unicorns? Are these what we think of when we think of unicorn? And are unicorns evil? Are these rhinoceros or something else? And why are they viewed as bad or dangerous? Verse 22, I will declare thy name unto my brethren. In the midst of the congregation will I praise thee. Pause. Is the author trying to negotiate with God? If you save me, I will praise you in front of my people. Which congregation, to which congregation does the author refer? And who are the brethren of the one that is being tormented? Or is the author looking forward to a future time, knowing that he will be delivered from this peril and will be able to praise God? Verse 23, Ye that fear the Lord, praise him. All ye the seed of Jacob, glorify him and fear him. All ye the seed of Israel. Pause. Who are the seed of Jacob? Who are the seed of Israel? And who are they that fear the Lord? Are they the same? Verse 24, For he hath not despised nor abhorred the affliction of the afflicted, neither hath he hid his face from him, but when he cried, unto him he heard. Pause. Who is the afflicted? Who are the abhorred? Does God care about the weak and the powerless and the oppressed? Verse 25, My praise shall be of thee in the great congregation. I will pay my vows before them that fear him. Pause. Is this a reference in verse 25 to temple worship and the great yearly sacrifice at the temple? And to which great congregation does the author refer? To the congregation gathered yearly at the temple, or to another congregation? Which vows did the author make to God that were distinct from the basic sacrifices? Does God expect grown-ups to make special vows to God as part of the individual pilgrimage spiritually to pleasing God? Verse 26, going back to verse 25, excuse me. I'm not trying to indicate to those who worry that they need to make special vows to God in order that they can placate their own worrisome nature. I am simply inquiring as to which vows, because it occurred to me that this was a common thing. And by what purpose would an individual, male or female, know that they had special vows to make? Was it because another person told them to make a special vow or a special fulfillment, such as an angel or a priest? Or was it inside of their own mind, their own conscience even, that told them that they needed to make a special offering? Verse 26, The meek shall eat and be satisfied. They shall praise the Lord that seek him. Your heart shall live forever. Pause. When the author says, your heart shall live forever, does that mean that the body will die, but that some aspect will remain? What is tied into the heart that ties it into the meek? The meek, I suppose, are humble and not pushy. Is that what God means? Does God like it when we are pushy, or does God prefer when we are less, I suppose, boisterous and less pushy? Does God have a preference one over the other? What is the original intent for the word meek? And why would the meek be viewed as not eating and not being satisfied normally? Is it because they're not hardworking enough? Is it because they're not pushy enough? Is it because they're not demanding enough generally to get their way? Do they eat second or third in the line? Are they lower on the pecking order? And does that mean that God cares about them and puts them in their correct place in the supposed pecking order or order of importance? Verse 27. Going back to verse 26. I'm not suggesting, because I know some of you will invariably take me so literally as to think that I am trying to create doctrine, and I am not. But my question remains, if the heart shall live forever, why does the author not say that the body shall live forever, per se? Why does the author specifically choose the word heart? Again, in the context of literature, in the context of the art that it is, and with the idea that it is beautiful, but that it also has certain deeper truths in it. So if the heart lives forever in the meek, what does the heart look like that is not meek? Verse 27. All the ends of the world shall remember and turn unto the Lord, and all the kindreds of the nations shall worship before thee. Pause. When the author says, all the ends of the world shall turn unto the Lord, does this indicate inhabited lands only, or also uninhabited? Earlier we spoke of they that fear the Lord, the seed of Jacob, and the seed of Israel, in verse 23. Now, in verse 27, we speak of all the ends of the world and all the kindreds of the nations. Does this indicate that the faith or the seed line of Israel will have penetrated and intermixed with the entire world at some point, or that they who fear the Lord will be expanded to all the nations? Verse 28. For the kingdom is the Lord's, and he is the governor among the nations. Pause. When will this happen? And why does it not appear that it is that way now? Is it that way now, and we simply don't know? Verse 29. All they that be fat upon earth shall eat and worship. All they that go down to the dust shall bow before him, and none can keep alive his own soul. Pause. Is the author simply saying here that even they that persecute the author cannot survive forever, so even if they win today, they cannot win tomorrow, or something else? Verse 30. A seed shall serve him. It shall be accounted to the Lord for a generation. Pause. To which special seed does this verse and the author refer? And when it says that this seed shall be accounted to the Lord for a generation, does that mean that this single seed will be as important as a generation in God's eyes, or that this seed shall lead a generation, or shall produce a generation? Verse 31. They shall come, and let me try that again. They shall come, and shall declare his righteousness unto a people that shall be born, that he hath done this. Pause. To what does the author refer when he says that he hath done this? What great act did this seed do? And who are they that shall come? Who are they that shall also declare righteousness unto a people that shall be born? Does this imply that history goes on after this great act has occurred, and that people shall be told of what happened on that great day. Who is this special seed? What are your good questions? Share your thoughts. Feel free to like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.